Pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum.
Hello, my name is Clay Fisher. What is the Soviet montage? It may sound boring for some of you, but truthfully, it is pretty boring. But if you love film, you'll be fascinated. It is one of the first cinematic movements that came from Russia in order to study the influence of film in the early 20s. Motion picture was still a new invention, so there wasn't much understanding on how could this make an emotional response to the audience. The Soviet montage would be one of the many movements that changed and evolved films to this date, coming from other cinematic movements like the German Expressionism, the French New Wave, the Italian Neorealism, Hollywood's New Brats from the 70s. I've already discussed what German Expressionism is. Now, it is time to discuss some of the characteristics of the Soviet montage and what is it. You know it is Soviet montage if it involves these names: Sergei Eisenstein, Lev Kuleshov, Vladimir Potemkin, and Sergei Bertov. All of them were Russian directors who contributed to the Soviet montage. However, Eisenstein would have a much bigger impact with his Soviet montage films like Battleship Potemkin, Strike, October, Ivan the Terrible, All the New, Alexander Nevsky. He would be one of the pioneers to introduce an editing skill that films now use to this date. It is called montage. A montage is a French word that means a symbol. As a linguistic teacher, Eisenstein viewed film as a new form of art, when before it was only viewed as just a form of entertainment or to make money. Art can speak a message figuratively, but with the new invention of film, it could also influence a much deeper message. As he once said, language is much closer to film than painting is. That leads us into the next characteristic, a new form of editing. Before the Soviet montage, films were shot with no creative angles or frames. It was just the camera standing still. That's it. Until an American movie was released in 1917. It had different styles of editing and creative shots that was considered as revolutionary. I am of course talking about Birth of a Nation, one of the most highly racist movies of all time. But in that moment, the film was a game changer for creating such epic, tense scenes through its editing and camera angles. Eisenstein saw the film and he would develop his editing theories, just as he included the Kuleshov effect, started first by Lev Kuleshov. The effect consists of two separate frames that, once put together, convey a message. A simple editing skill in today's standards, replace it with a different image and the meaning changes. Sounds like news media these days. In Eisenstein's book, Film Form, he describes 5 different montages: metric, rhythmic, tonal, overtonal, and intellectual. Metric montage focuses on the length of the shots relative to one another. These are scenes where they intercut in the same amount of time, followed by the beat of the music. October uses this montage in the shooting scene. Other modern examples would be from the drug addiction in Requiem for a Dream, the murder in A Clockwork Orange, and Scarlett Johansson's fantasy in Don John. Rhythmic montage focuses on the movement within the frame. This is the most overused montage to this date, as it's meant to build adrenaline and tension. An example is the famous Otis stairs from Battleship Potemkin. In modern movies, you see this in every car chase, in every action scene, and in every Marvel film. Other examples are the climatic battle in Star Wars: A New Hope, the tower scene in Back to the Future, and the final face-off in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Tonal montage focuses on the emotional sound of the piece. That is to set up the tone of the scene with similar motifs or elements. In Battleship Potemkin, the captain's funeral is an example of showing sorrow through the sun going down and the ships getting darker. Other motifs that are used to express sorrow and loss are the crown of thorns and nails in Passion of the Christ, the swords in Seven Samurai, the crystal ball in Citizen Kane, the Japper snippet in Revenge of the Sith. A baby can also be used as a motif to express joy. Harvey Dent's coin falling in The Dark Knight is used to express relief that the danger is finally over. Overtonal is a combination of all 4 montages to develop an emotional impact. The bathtub scene in Psycho combines the build-up tension, followed by the frames changing at the beat of the music to express fear and horror. Intellectual shot focuses on the shots that are distinct from each other in order to create a symbolic meaning. This montage can be used in artsy films that want to leave a deeper message, like the bone transition from Spaceship in 2001, the Colonel and the Bull being slaughtered at the same time in Apocalypse Now, the candle from Schindler's List transforming into the smoke of a Holocaust train. October is filled with these montages, like the scene with the gods that represents social class division. However, these Soviet films could be described as intellectual for their overuse of symbolisms, which can alienate most viewers when they don't know what the scene is trying to convey. That's when you know it's part of the Soviet montage movement if it has animal symbolisms. The symbolisms in films may have been new at that time, and could also alienate most viewers when they're forced to think of what does every scene has to mean. Whether it's a cow being butchered to represent the rebels getting killed by the army in strike, or the starving animals representing the starving farmers in All the New, or a dead white horse rising up only to fall to its death, just like the people rose up and got killed in October, the animals could be considered as one of the first elements that were used for symbolic purposes, as well as to include them as intellectual montage. Sometimes most of these films were divided into chapters to show the variation of these montages. But moving away from its technical area, you know it is part of the Soviet montage movement if it has revolutionary themes in it. The world was changing to the Industrial Revolution, Russia was staying behind, the unnecessary wars they entered into left the people suffer from poverty and food shortage, the Romanov monarchy was doing a ludicrous job governing their people. These frustrations led the people revolt against the Romanov monarchy in the 1917 revolution. And yes, children, I'm talking about these Romanovs. And yes, Rasputin was very real, very, very real. The monarchy was overthrown and replaced instead with a much modern and more competent form of government. Communism. Marxist communism, led by Vladimir Lenin and then by Joseph Stalin. What is Marxism? Well, just so that I don't take too long explaining, let's just say it means anti-capitalism, anti-monarchy, anti-religion, and pro-labor workers. Eisenstein shared the Marxist beliefs as he joined the Red Army during the revolution. Also being a supporter of Lenin, he would have small appearances in most of the Russian films. Later, Eisenstein's films were under the supervision of Stalin for propaganda usage, reflecting the people's mindset in that time, like glorifying the oppressed labor workers, antagonizing the rich owners as greedy and corrupt, monarchies and all type of religion was bad, and glorified all type of revolts that Russia had during the revolution in October, Mother, the factory workers revolting in strike, and his greatest work of all time, Battleship Potemkin, is the perfect representation of his political and cinematic ideals about the oppressed sailors rebelling against their captain. However, Eisenstein's films were so political that they had a cycle of getting banned and then re-released again, like Alexander Nevsky. The film was banned because it was a war movie with Russia against Germany, back when Russia and Germany were allies, but when their alliance cooled down, that's when the movie was released. Ivan the Terrible was made from the advice of Stalin to glorify the old days of Russia, originally meant to be a trilogy, but after the second film seemed to criticize Stalin's regime, production for the third movie was put into halt, and all of the film footage was burned by the orders of Stalin. In the end, this new style of editing was to serve Russian propaganda fed through films, something that Germany would later catch up with their Nazi propagandas. With all that said, these films were giving a lack of protagonist. Since the montage was focused on its technical achievements and political ideals, there was no time to put a compelling story. Sometimes it would be hard to follow what was going on since there was no compelling lead we could know and follow their journey. By the time Eisenstein's films moved into the talkies, there was more character drivenness in Alexander Nevsky and Ivan the Terrible Part 1 and Part 2, although you can say the camera was the main lead, showing these incredible cuts and frames and angles that no one had done before. The Man with the Camera is a fun documentary that shows not only the different styles of editing montage, but it shows how was it made back then, and with all their limitations, it looks very impressive. However, the Soviet montage is also known for not having real actors. The actors in Strike, October, Battleship Potemkin, and All the New were not trained actors, but to its benefit, this added to its realism, looking more like a documentary. In fact, the director in All the New wanted to use a professional actress at first, but when none of the actresses had any real experience farming, he got instead a real farm girl that could fulfill the demands of the script. Basically, the Soviet montage is all about editing. Sounds simple enough. However, it is also a historical recollection of the social changes in Russia. Every cinematic movement is molded by any social changes. The Soviet montage captures the mindset of the people in that time, leaving us a new innovation of filmmaking that has affected how we tell a story, how we convey a message, and how we can show art. Wait a minute. If every movie to this date is shot like a Russian film, is Captain America a communist? No! Did you know Joseph Stalin was considered as the Man of Steel? What if Superman was a fan of Stalin? So to all my belovable patriots out there who are fighting the evil communist, let's not forget something. You already have them in your television and movies that you watch every single day. Tune in next time because it's gonna get very spooky as I compare Hassan and the witch. So for now, that's it for today. Ciao.
Pasito tum tum, pasito tum tum, pasito tum